Hello YouTube, it is your boy B3 back with another kicking movie reaction review. Doing another Toku movie for y'all today. I just rewatched this movie, one so I could review it, and two because I'm watching Go Busters and it's part of Go Busters. Kamen Rider Super Sentai Superhero Taisen. If you aren't familiar with Superhero Taisen, they are crossover films for Kamen Rider and Super Sentai. Big Avengers level crossovers. Like this crossover was more ambitious than Infinity War, let me tell you that. Not as worried about continuity as Infinity War is, though. Because this movie aired when Kamen Rider Forze and Tokumi Sentai Go Busters were on the air. And I'm currently watching Go Busters, so I decided to rewatch it. I actually watched it back in 2012 when it premiered, believe it or not. Shortly after it was dubbed, I did in fact watch it. It was the first Super Sentai movie I ever saw. Not only that, it was the first Kamen Rider movie I ever saw. So, I was very hyped for it. And even then, I loved it, but also recognized it had many problems. And now I'm finally in a place where I can review it, because I've seen it like 3 times. And I've seen all the shows that go with it. I'm at the point in Go Busters where you're supposed to watch this movie. I've seen all of Kamen Rider Forze, and I've seen all of Kamen Rider Decade, and Pirate Sentai Gokaiger. And really the things you need to watch to understand this are more Pirate Sentai Gokaiger and Kamen Rider Decade. You'd think these two shows right here would be the main ones, but they are in fact not. You need to know more about Gokaiger and Decade when you watch this. Because it's about Captain Marvelous, leader of the Gokaigers, who can transform into any previous Red Sentai member, or Red Ranger. And he's in a war with Kamen Rider Decade, who can transform into any past Kamen Rider. They're both anniversary characters, so they can transform into previous versions. That was their gimmick. So it really makes a lot of sense to pit them against each other. And their shows actually have more similarities than I originally realized. So they're fighting each other, and they're like, oh, one can't exist if the other does, so we have to destroy each other. And then the Kamen Rider Decade gets all these previous Kamen Rider villains to team up with him, and Captain Marvelous gets all these previous Sentai villains to team up with him, even though it seems like it would make more sense for Decade to recruit Sentai villains, because they would be the ones who know how to fight Sentai and the ones who would be willing to fight Sentai, and then for Marvelous to recruit Kamen Rider villains, because they would be the ones that would want to fight Kamen Riders more. But it's whatever. It's not really a big deal. Because as the film goes on, and there are going to be spoilers in this, I'm telling you right now, we're hitting the spoiler point, because there are some things that there's some spoilers I need to mention so that I can point out how stupid they are. All the villains were working together the whole time. And that's not stupid in itself, but they were working together to, like, trick the Kamen Riders and Super Sentai members into thinking they had to destroy each other, but they knew the whole time. So Decade and Marvelous were fighting the entire time, knowing that they were being manipulated, but instead of killing other Sentai Rider members, they were sending them to another dimension to wait out until the final battle, so that the villains would reveal themselves thinking that the Sentai and Riders had been destroyed. And I was like, that's such a dumb plan. Why not just recruit everybody and attack them before they make their big giant machine mecha thing? And they fused the big ship from like Kamen Rider Black RX with the villain's ship from Gokaiger to make this big mech. It's so dumb! Why didn't they just fight all the villains and take them down before they made the mech? Why did they wait for them to complete the mech before they revealed that everyone was still alive? It doesn't make any sense. And even though it came out during these two guys' shows, they aren't really that necessary of characters until the very end. We see Forens do some stuff and fight and get his ass kicked, and Meteor, quote-unquote, dies. But he doesn't really die, he's just transported to another dimension. And then we see kind of the same thing happen with the Gokaigers, and then we don't really see him again until the end of the film. And the people that are actually that are the main characters are Kamen Rider D-End, who was the secondary rider in Decade, Gokai Blue and Gokai Green, and then also the female lead from Kamen Rider O's, whose name I don't know because I haven't watched Kamen Rider O's. Sorry. But Kamen Rider O's and the Gokaigers also had a pretty big part in this because they were the previous shows. O's was before Fornsei, and Gokaiger was before Go Busters, right? So that's why they get a part. And then O's, for no reason, right? For no reason, happens to have Ranger keys of his different forms that he gives to the Gokaigers so they can all turn into different Kamen Rider O's forms. And I was like, where'd you get those fucking keys? Where'd you get those keys? It doesn't make sense. And then there's one part where Captain Marvelous is like, y'all gotta go back in time to recruit the original, like, Akiba Ranger, the first Sentai Red Ranger, so that he can explain all this to you. And he doesn't even explain it well. But then they bring him back to the past to fight the original Kamen Rider. And it turns out the original Kamen Rider and the original Sentai Red are actually, in fact, Decade and Marvelous in disguise once again for no reason. What? I remember the first time I watched this film. That was the point in the movie where it got stupid. I was watching the movie, Riders and Sentai versus each other. They didn't have a good reason to fight, but you didn't care because it was cool to watch them fight. And then those two turned into Decade and Marvelous, and I was like, what the hell was the point of all that? Why did you do that? It's so stupid. And then, you want to hear the dumbest part. They beat the villains before they can activate their big mech. But Decade decides to just betray everyone at the last second. Not Decade, sorry. D-End decides to betray everyone at the last second for no reason. He forms the mech and then fights the Go Busters in their mech. But Go Buster Yellow gets knocked out of the mech, so Kamen Rider Forns takes her place and uses some of his switches, including this rocket switch right here, to upgrade it with his rockets and his drills so that they can fight this big mech. And the big mech didn't even seem that strong because they beat it very, very easily. And then there were no consequences for D-End after everyone just forgave him and let him leave. Why not just have one of the villains survive and get in the mech? Why not just have the Rider Killer Robot dude or the King Crab dude in the stupid mech? Why not just do that instead of having D-End just betray everyone at the last second for really no reason? There's no point. Now, I know I've said a lot of spoilers in this, and I know I've criticized this movie a lot, but I actually do love it. It's just pure fun, to be completely honest. Watching Riders and Sentais fight each other, all these legacy characters, including legacy villains, all in the same place. It has a ton of continuity errors, though, which doesn't really bother me when it comes to this stuff. Like, if it means seeing all my characters team up, I don't give a damn about continuity. If you watch my show G&G, you know I don't give a damn about continuity. I mess up continuity all the time. I don't care. I'll care about continuity on my Toku show I'm making, though. Toku King. Donate to the show in the Indiegogo link below. I'll care about continuity for that show, but just my little comedy series, I don't care. Because, like, Go Busters happens in 2012, right? But it happens in Neo 2012. So it's like an unknown amount of time in the future where we have this new energy source and all this stuff. But according to this movie, Go Busters is just happening at the same time as Fornsei, which happens in normal 2012, not Neo 2012. So this is supposed to be happening kind of in the future, and this is happening in the present, but they're both together at the same time, and it doesn't explain that, and there's no time travel plot to that. Sorry. I was doing my Deku mumbling there for a second. I do like the movie, though. It's so fun to see all these characters together in the same place, kicking ass. The suits are great. Some of the CGI is kind of TV quality CGI, but that's kind of expected from Toku stuff like this, to be honest. But even though I gave you several spoilers, I do think it's worth watching still. If you watched this and didn't care about the spoilers, it's still worth watching. It's a pretty ambitious crossover with lots of great characters, lots of legacy stuff, some really cool fights, just excellent choreography. And how often do you get to see Kamen Riders and Super Sentai team up? Well, I mean, you get to see them team up every year, but they don't really do superhero Taisens like this anymore. They only did it for a few years, and now I think they mostly just have, like, specials, or, like, a single movie just for the specific Kamen Rider and Sentai team that are currently on, like XA did with that Space Sentai I haven't watched yet. But that's it. All in all, I do recommend the movie if you're a big Toku fan. If you're not a big Toku fan, you're going to be completely lost while watching it. So at least know some things about Super Sentai and Kamen Rider before you watch it. And even if you don't know much, because the first time I watched it, I didn't know much about Super Sentai or Kamen Rider. I was mostly a Power Rangers and Ultraman guy at that point. I still really enjoyed it back then, even when I didn't know much about these two franchises specifically. So that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, etc. I hope you like my figures here. I have reviewed both of these action figures, this one very recently. So check them out on my Godzilla and Gigan channel. That's it. Thank you all once again for your support, and I'll see you all later.